Hello everyone, my name is Shannon Walsh and this is my presentation on Appalachian culture. I found this subject interesting because many of my friends here at NKU either lived around or in Appalachia. I wanted to find out and dive more into the culture because growing up in my hometown, I only heard of the typical stereotypes of the culture. I felt as if this was my opportunity to learn and grow while diving into a culture that is unfamiliar to mine. So first, I wanted to focus on what is Appalachia. In a geological sense, Appalachia is a region that follows a 205,000 square mile region, and the mountain hits 12 states, all the way from New York to northern Mississippi. And you can see that on the map right over here. And 42% of Appalachia is considered a rural area, but it's also known for its coal mining, scenery, forests, mountains, but it's also seen for its extreme poverty. So, Appalachian culture. According to our Sensoy and D'Angelo text, culture refers to the characteristics of everyday life of a group of people located in a given time and place. So obviously we're focusing on the Appalachian people and the Appalachian Mountains. And keep in mind for this presentation that some of the culture can be visible, but much of the culture is below the surface that many cannot see. Many people think of Appalachian culture as extreme for their extreme poverty and their love for Mountain Dew. They are more than that, though, more than the stereotyped myths in their impoverished areas. So what shapes the Appalachian culture? So a man named Maloney wrote an article for the urban Appalachian community about him growing up in the Appalachian culture and his love for it. So the first thing he touches on is what shapes the Appalachian culture is food. So just as every culture, they have their specific food to create a culture. Maloney emphasizes on Appalachians' love for pinto beans and sharing it with families. He also touches on their love for fried potatoes, poke salad, and bologna sandwiches. To touch on the Mountain Dew stereotype, it arises from the convenience of pop and how cheap and accessible it is in their town and their community. The next thing he touches on is values. Maloney focuses on how there are two types of values that people can see from the Appalachian culture. People see a positive one and what Maloney sees as a negative one. So the negative consists of violence and individualism with the need for limited government. This is a stereotype stemmed from white supremacy and socialization, what we learned about in our text. So outside people believe that there are certain ways that people should act, and although it can and does exist in the community, it is not the whole culture. It does not speak for the culture as a whole. Maloney touches on how people made these stereotypes because of their want for their land, their distribution of wealth, and the spread of their religion. The positive value, but he also focuses on the positive, and the positive values consist of the Appalachians' love for their land, their families, their religion, and their love for justice. They love the people of their hometown and their families. The next thing Maloney touches on is their love for storytelling. Appalachians love their stories and continue to create their stories today. They tell and speak of stories of having a better life away from the coal mines. They tell stories about how wives of the Appalachians organize a community to push for work safety, accessible healthcare treatment, and better pay for their husbands. They tell stories about how they fought against surface mining to protect their homes, the beauty of their lands, and the environment. There are many stories of success for themselves, their town, and their schools. Their stories emphasize on helping each other and succeeding in their own ways. Another thing that shapes Appalachian culture is the music. This is from, I got a lot of this information from the West Virginia Broadcasting System, where they spoke about youth in Appalachia. And one of the things they talked about is how Dolly Parton is a success story from Appalachia, growing up in eastern Tennessee of the Appalachian Mountains. The Appalachian Mountains even hold their summer concert series that welcomes kids, families, and individuals of all ages. It is held in West Virginia of the mountains and is one of the many events that shares the mountains' love for the creation of music. So with that being said, next is the poverty and classism in Appalachia. If you recall classism from our text, is everyone really equal? It is a systematic oppression of the poor and working people by those who control the necessary resources. This includes jobs, living wages, education, housing, food, medicine, and so on. This is a system of beliefs that ranks the people according to the economic status of breeding jobs and their level of education. Appalachian individuals suffer because of classism. So Appalachia has the highest poverty rate in the United States, and the question we need to ask is why. One of the reasons is because of their high levels of unemployment. While the average unemployment rate of the United States is 6.2%, of individuals being unemployed, 6.5% of the Appalachians are considered unemployed compared to the average. This is because of the shutting down of coal mines and manufacturing plants to go overseas. As a result to this, many Appalachians lost their jobs that were right next to their homes, and less jobs are offered in their hometowns because of the isolation in their areas. Another reason why the poverty rate is so high is because of their low living wages. Appalachia has some of the lowest wages in the United States. The average income of these families is $37,000 to $46,000 a year, but many people still live under this income level. And another reason is because they have a lack of help. So in the 60s, there was a hope for Appalachia because President Johnson declared a war on poverty. But during this time, Appalachia gained little attention and still received little change within their communities. The government focused on a separate program to make a change, but did not push the whole government to fight for a fairer system to give opportunities and benefits to the people of poverty. According to Cynthia M. Duncan in her PBS special, Why Poverty Persists, the towns of Appalachia are still suffering the consequences because of the lack of commitment for their education and schools, while they are not being offered skills and opportunities for their community. And another reason for poverty is their low levels of education. A study from the Appalachian Regional Commission focused on the education in Appalachian schools. They found that in a 2000 study that 23.2% of Appalachians have less than a high school diploma. The nation average for this is 19.2%. With this, only 17.7% of the Appalachian region have a bachelor's degree or higher. The nation average for this is 24.4% of individuals having a degree. The reason for this is important because higher levels of education correlate with better health in both the individual and children. And when you're more likely to have a higher salary because of the higher level of education, it makes it more accessible to have access to basic health care, transportation, and more. The region is suffering because of the low levels of education. Because of the region's low levels of education, they tend to have a lower economy. So when the economy does take a dip and the middle class suffers only a little bit, it puts the lower income regions for a deeper hole of poverty. There is such a need for post-secondary education in Appalachian culture. But it is harder to achieve because of the cycle of poverty occurring in their towns. So that's why classism comes into play for this, because many middle class and upper class people say they want to help the poor, but it's pretty evident that there is little help coming into the Appalachian areas. And with that being said, I did want to focus on how the education system is trying to improve for the Appalachian children, though. So, education in Appalachia. Despite the high poverty level in Appalachia, the education system is trying to make a difference for the young Appalachian lives. Researchers from nonprofits SNA's Education studied Appalachian education from 1995 to 2015. And in their study, they found that from 1979 to 1999, the high school graduation rates increased by 20%. And then in 2009, they found that the graduation rate in Appalachia was higher than the national average as well. And then they came to find that young individuals were also found to receive the same level or did nearly as well on the ACT as compared to their non-Appalachian peers. So what is shifting this change? Well, according to top poverty studies, the schools are trying to help the students go to college. The previous problem of young Appalachians is isolation. Since they are far from any public transportation to other towns and the roads can be bad, students often find themselves stuck in their hometown. To help push schools into pushing their kids to graduate high school and possibly go to college, they increased their lunchtime to an hour long. The reason this is important is because students can get help with homework, visit the media center in their school, and do more activities during this lunch hour ran by the schools. The schools are also trying to make take trips outside the region to show students the outside regions of Appalachia. This is very important because of the isolation factor within their community. Seeing that there's an opportunity outside their hometown makes a difference in the goals students have for themselves. And high schools and elementary schools are also shifting the focus of working after high school. The schools are now trying to create a college after high school environment. And these schools are trying to break the culture norms and socialization of graduating or dropping out of high school to work in factory, mines, railroads, or other low-wage jobs. The schools are trying to shift the idea of college after high school to help students further educate themselves and hopefully one day benefit their town. How they are doing this is not only by taking students to college campuses, but they are also holding college fairs and festivals for students to hear personal testimony from other Appalachians who broke the chain of not going to college. This creates an ambition for each other and will allow them to know that they are not alone in being first-generation college students if they are. Local colleges are also jumping in to help. So local colleges are offering scholarships for students of low-income families. Some of these allow students to go to school for almost free. This leads to a better home life and future for that individual student. So I wanted to talk about a positive twist, and this TED Talks is by a teacher from Eastern Kentucky, Appalachia, that touches on the problems, the beauties, and the students of Appalachia. And the speaker encourages young people to come back to their hometown of Appalachia to make a difference in their community. I'm not going to show it because it's 12 minutes long, and Dr. Childs doesn't show the videos in his presentations. He gives us the time to watch it and then reflect at the end, so I encourage you all to do that. And but the video is very important, and if you have time, take some time to sit down and listen to what this professor has to say. This is a quote from Michael Maloney's "What is Appalachian Culture" article. I felt like this was an important note to end on. He said, "We made cars and trucks and refrigerators. We dug ditches, we taught school. We were lawyers, doctors, and nurses. We are one of the 4 greater Cincinnatians. Yet, we still have families that do not share this success and still need the help of our community. How we respond to their needs will say a lot about our culture." I hope you enjoyed my So this is my works cited, and I really hope you enjoyed my presentation on Appalachian culture and gained some knowledge about the region of Appalachia. Thank you.